the world according to Jen and Carolyn.
Talking about cancel culture today.
I'm so glad we're doing this.
I'm glad we're doing this as well, because I've got opinions, and I think you do too.
Yes.
So, and on that note, everyone who is aware of what cancel culture is, I think, has an opinion on this topic. So, whether you think canceling someone is a necessary and appropriate response to offensive behavior, or you feel that cancel culture has gone too far, you're going to want to listen. So we're going to take a somewhat shallow dive into this and, weigh the arguments for and against canceling someone. Is it justice? Is it censorship? We're going to let you decide, but we're also going to let you know
decide
what we think, because we're really good at telling you what we think, whether you want to hear it or not.
And you can cancel us if you don't want to.
Yeah, feel free to cancel us anytime. I'm pretty sure everyone, or at least everyone who listens to this show, knows what cancel culture is, but I think it's important we take a moment to define it.
Define it.
That's true. And my mom probably wouldn't either, though she hasn't started listening yet. But for those of you who aren't aware, cancel culture refers to the mass withdrawal of support from public figures or celebrities who have done things that aren't socially accepted today. This practice of canceling or mass shaming often occurs on social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. So, Carolyn, can you think of anyone who you supported the canceling of, who either has been canceled or really should be canceled?
Well, I think this is we've talked about this before, Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I want to say hate, I basically can't listen or watch anything from the past if I'm going to say cancel, hate the artist, not the art. But there's certain things that I draw a line with. Michael Jackson was a really hard one. Bill Cosby comes to mind.
Yeah.
And honestly, the first one to me is Milli Vanilli.
Oh, that's interesting.
In the 80s, to me, they were my first experience of cancel culture. Yeah. And I'm just, again, I've talked about this before. I have a sister who's 3 years older than me. She was very cool. I looked up to her as we were younger. And it was like, I think we were in Walgreens, like buying folders.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, I'm going to get Paula Abdul and Debbie Gibson. I was like, I'll get Milli Vanilli. She's like, no, you can't. They lip sync.
I can't believe that.
I hate them now.
Their products were even out after that happened. Because it's like, well, no, you have no relevance because you're not actually talented. So, folks, we're old. So, in the very early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, there was 2 dudes, really handsome. And they had a song called "Girl, You Know It's True," and that was like, and "Blame It on the Rain." They had a few hits, and then it was discovered because they were performing, and the tape started skipping that they were lip syncing, and it actually wasn't them who were performing any of their songs. I know some artists lip sync when they're performing because they're so engrossed in the dancing, but I think sometimes there's some lip syncing. No, these guys didn't do any of their own stunts. Like, it was not their voices at all. And so, they were subsequently canceled. So, for me, it's definitely crazy. Ask Elon Musk. I guess some people think he's already been canceled, but, it's kind of hard to cancel somebody who owns fucking Twitter or X. But I don't know.
I felt weird looking at Teslas after that. I was
like, never get a Tesla.
Kind of weird. I don't know.
I think he's a terrible human being.
It's driving like a Donald Trump car and all that weird stuff that went on with Trump. And I don't know. It's just,
strange.
It's strange.
Yeah. Anyway, so, of people's familiarity with cancel culture, Pew Research reports that 44% of Americans say they have heard at least a fair amount about the phrase, including 22% who have heard a great deal, according to the Center's survey of about 10,000 U.S. adults, and it was conducted in 2020. So a lot of folks know what cancel culture is, but we wanted to dive into the origins of this relatively new phenomenon. So this is from Business Insider. It said in this article, the roots are basically in the early 2010s in Tumblr blogs, notably Your Fave is Problematic, where fandoms would discuss why their favorite stars were imperfect. Cancel culture came into the collective consciousness around 2017 after the idea of canceling celebrities for problematic actions or statements became popular. So, Webster Dictionary basically says that, what did they say? Connected cancel culture with the Me Too movement, which coincided with the rise of the term's popularity online. And so new allegations seemed to come out daily, and attitudes quickly shifted against the accused, which is a good thing.
Yes.
The phrase cancel culture experienced notable growth in 2016 and 2017, particularly on Black Twitter. And then the phrase continued to gain popularity on Twitter in late 2017, with people writing cancel culture in quotation marks to describe the trend. So some notable examples some of whom we've already mentioned. So first is Roseanne Barr. Terrible racist tweets, strangely denying the Holocaust in spite of being Jewish. I don't even know what's coming out of this bitch's mouth these days.
My family canceled her when she sang the Pledge of Allegiance at the ball game and grabbed her vagina.
Oh, that's when I liked her. I was like, this behavior makes you likable to me.
My family was like, you can't watch that show anymore.
Oh my
it was
God.
very intense.
Then we have Kanye, whom some people still love, but again, like real wacky stuff, especially in regard to Jewish folks. Then you have James Corden treating working people like trash. Definitely not into that guy. Never really was. Bill Cosby, he's a rapist. Kevin Spacey, Mel Gibson, though I don't think he's technically been canceled. He's another Holocaust denier. I'm not big into Mel Gibson because of that. But anyway, but were they ever really canceled? You know, there are some people who will make excuses for these folks until the cows come home.
Well, you never see Kevin Spacey anywhere, but I see Mel Gibson's face everywhere.
Right.
Like, I think that's interesting to me. What sustains someone's canceling and what, like, makes it not happen?
Yeah, totally.
You
got to continue the outrage, man.
Yeah.
Selective outrage, as Chris Rock calls it. So we're going to talk about some of the pros and cons here. So this is from procon.org, the ultimate advisor on the pros and cons of any given subject. They said cancel culture allows marginalized people to seek accountability where the justice system fails, like the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
Cancel culture gives a voice to disenfranchised or less powerful people. The critics of cancel culture are plainly threatened not by a new and uniquely powerful kind of public criticism, but by a new set of critics, young progressives, including many minorities and women, who largely through social media have obtained a seat at the table where matters of justice and etiquette are debated and are banging it out loudly to make up for lost time. So, okay. And then cancel culture is simply a new form of boycott, a cherished tactic in the civil rights movement to bring about social change. I see that.
Yeah.
A cultural boycott, that's what cancel culture can be seen as. An agreement not to amplify, signal boost, give money to people who do things that are inappropriate, offensive, etc.
Yeah.
So those are some of the pros in favor of cancel culture. Carolyn, from a psychological perspective, why does the concept of cancel culture appeal to so many?
Well, a 2019 Psychology Today article, I love looking at them first, by Rob Henderson, he's over at Cambridge, takes a look at this concept. And he takes a stance from something called cross-cultural psychology, which is a branch of psychology, for those who don't know, that looks at how cultural factors influence human behavior. In other words,
in college.
I did too. It was wonderful.
It's probably the same professor.
I think she works for the city of San Francisco.
Oh, cool. I had a guy at USF,
So, this looks at, cross-cultural psychology looks at how cultural factors influence human behavior. In other words, any aspect of human thought and behavior, they're sort of universal, but there's always going to be cultural differences, and it often leads to a surprising difference in how people think, feel, and act. And this is relevant because it's a phenomenon that's happening across the globe because of social media platforms. So we couldn't have talked about cancel culture in the same way, I think, 30 years ago.
No, absolutely not.
Rob Henderson gives 5 reasons that are powerful motives to cancel. Let me list the 5 and then I'll go into them a little bit.
Okay.
So the first one is cancel culture increases social status. It also reduces the social status of an enemy or a perceived enemy. although it could also elevate them with the other side.
Yeah.
Cancel culture strengthens social bonds, and cancel culture forces enemies to reveal themselves, and cancel culture also produces fast rewards. Again, this all is in the context to me of social media.
Oh, yeah.
So cancel culture increasing social status. Research reveals that sociometric, sorry guys, I'm on a lot of Zyrtec. I'm on some like allergy med this morning that's making me so loopy.
It makes you loopy, man. That's why I stick to Claritin. Sometimes Claritin's not enough, but it doesn't have the same impact as like a Zyrtec.
It's Allerclear. It's some like off-brand.
No, that's right. That's the really? Costco brand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just Costco Claritin.
Dude, it's fucking me up right now. Anyway, I'm gonna get canceled because my nose is running and I sound congested.
You're gonna offend somebody, man.
I'm definitely, but I know you hate that sound, so I apologize.
It's okay.
But anyway, so we, as humans, we like respect and admiration from our peers. It's actually more important to our sense of well-being than even socioeconomic status and wealth and power. Mm-hmm. So if you're what's called a social striver, cancel culture, it creates new opportunities for you to move up and down a ladder.
Interesting.
Which means you're also to get up, you have to step on other people. That's why I'm not a fan. Cancel culture reduces social status of enemies. So there's something called moral grandstanding.
Oh, yeah.
If there's an activity that will elevate your status or your group, people are going to do it. One approach is to do elevation to do something good. Yeah. This is sort of what I subscribe to. It makes me feel good. You might fail, but it's going to require effort. It's going to require commitment. Unfortunately, the other option also exists. It's more socially satisfying to broadcast, I don't agree with this, but broadcast the bad behaviors of others.
Yeah.
And this method works because its social status is relative. I know from positive discipline and Gottman research, which is what I use to inform my psychotherapy practice, people are more slow to give moral praise for a good act and more quick to assign moral blame for a bad one.
Makes sense.
And that's how we've ended up how we are. Also social bonds. There's solidarity in numbers. People enjoy uniting around a common purpose. They don't like, even something as silly as, I love bacon. Oh, I love bacon too. And avocados and all the stupid shit.
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah, seriously. So, again, when there's a perpetrator, we like that and it brings groups together. The other one, forcing enemies to reveal themselves. I actually appreciate this. Rallying around a morally ambiguous transgression and seeing how other people react. There's this recruitment of the assenters and targeting of the dissenters. So if someone agrees and more disagree, I kind of like knowing, okay, that's how you feel. Yeah. Thank you for letting me know who you are and how you feel. And I'm actually kind of just curious how you got there. And I want to ask questions. I want to know where you're from. I'm not going to attack you. But, if we can exile the person who doesn't fit in, it's so silly.
We've been doing this since the beginning of human history.
I remember it's such a horrible moment in my behavior as a child. But I remember I did ballet class and you were supposed to take your underwear off before you put your leotard on. And there was one girl, because you didn't have a panty line. It just doesn't matter. But there was one girl who didn't do that, and we all made fun of her.
Oh my gosh.
I was a fucking mean-ass bitch.
Yeah, kids do that. But you're supposed to grow out of it. But the problem is, most of us don't.
Well, it's that same thing. She was canceled because she wasn't doing what we all did, and that made us feel superior, and it made her feel like shit. I'm so sorry, Claudia. I feel bad about this every day. So anyway, the last one is that it's rewards. So social rewards are immediate, they're gratifying, and they also on social media, they're distant and abstract. You don't have to, I remember Claudia, I remember doing that to her. I feel fucked up about it.
Well, that means you've grown.
So humans can be impatient little animals and we want immediate rewards. And so if we have a remote possibility, we don't really think about future suffering. And like you said, you normally are supposed to mature out of this. So,
Interesting. And I watched we had to turn it off because it was deeply disturbing, but this thing on Hulu, this documentary about this guy who created this immersive haunted house experience. And it was it's made for social media. And so people who wanted to elevate their status on social media and become like Instagram famous or whatever, they go to this haunted house, they sign this crazy waiver. It's like, we might extract teeth. Like,
oh, God.
we might have a heart attack.
No.
Like, people are signing this long list of terrible physical and psychological things that might occur and being like, well, this is going to be put onto YouTube. This entire thing is going to be filmed and my status might be elevated because of it. So I'm willing to put myself in harm's way. And it's all about how this guy who did it was being terribly abusive. And if you watch it, the things he did were absolutely terrifying. Anyway, but it just kind of reminded me of this, you know, increasing social status and the extent that people will go to in order to do that. And the way in which we do that in our current society typically is with social media.
Yes.
So anyway, big digression, but yeah, I couldn't get through it. Once they showed this one woman who went through the experience and he asks you in advance, what are your biggest fears? He was putting tarantulas on her face, bro.
No.
And saying, don't move or the tarantula will get aggravated and either spit hairs at you or bite you.
This guy's sociopath?
Yes. 100%. From a psychological perspective, I think you need to see this. It's called like Monster. I'll find it.
Okay,
I'll tell everybody what it is before we go.
I know what I'm doing tonight.
We couldn't hang. Couldn't hang, but it is a fascinating study.
I think torture.
Yeah, it's
like
torture.
The Saw.
It's torture porn.
Yeah,
and it's people putting themselves at the center of their own torture porn film in the hope of elevating themselves.
So technically they're giving consent, but if they actually knew what they were consenting to,
right? They
didn't realize. Oh, that's sick.
And they're in these terrifying circumstances, and the guy's like, we can stop. Do you want to stop? And they're like, no, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Because in the back of their head, they're thinking, yeah, look at how many likes this is going to get. Like, it's
wow.
A fascinating journey into the mind, first and foremost, and what motivates people to do things in spite of being confronted with legitimate peril. This is legitimate peril. It's so fucking unethical. Yeah, wow. Totally unethical. Anyway, I digress. I'm just really passionate about really activated after watching this just last night, you guys.
Oh, man. Okay.
Anyway, but I think it really supports, point number one you made in regard to this. So let's talk about the cons of cancel culture. This is also from procon.org. So cancel culture amounts to online bullying and can incite violence and threats even worse than the original offense of, being called out. So Sam Biddle, the journalist who retweeted Justine Sacco's joke about AIDS that resulted in her firing while on a plane to South Africa, later regretted his actions and their results, stating, "It's easy and thrilling to hate a stranger online." Do you remember what she did? Yeah, that was terrible.
I do.
I think was she an Olympian?
I think so.
I think she was an Olympian on her way to Africa, to South Africa, and to the Summer Games, and said, "I'm on my way to Africa. Hope I don't get AIDS." Jeez. Really, really terrible shit. And so then this other author, Assam Ahmad, he's an author and a community organizer. He notes that canceling an everyday person without compassion for the complexity of that person's life amounts to bullying. For instance, most call-outs I've witnessed immediately render anyone who has committed a perceived wrong as an outsider to the community. So we're othering them without giving them the opportunity to learn from their mistakes, show retribution, and evolve and change, which is or should be part of the human experience. Yeah. Another critique of it is cancel culture is not productive and does not bring about the social change that it intends. Yeah. It's kind of the lazy person's attempt at making social change.
Well, it's the keyboard troll.
It's a keyboard troll. Where the rest of us, back in the day, were actually taking to the streets and marching in the thousands.
Which still didn't create a lot of social change.
At least it created this awareness, right? Yeah. And it's people actually physically getting together to say, we disagree with the Iraq War, for instance, right? I marched in a lot of Iraq War protests. Yeah. It seems more tangible and more real and more impactful than what's going on currently. Yes. So, President Barack Obama said that, if I retweet a hashtag about how you didn't do something right or use the wrong verb, then I can sit back and feel pretty good about myself. Because, man, you see how woke I was? I called you out. That's not activism. That's not bringing about change. Yeah. If all you're doing is casting stones, you're probably not going to get that far. That's easy to do. Yeah. And I believe he's right, and we'll get into why. But, it's like when people come to the table and all they have is critiques and negative things to say, and you go, well, what's your solution? No, I don't have a solution. I just want to call out what's wrong and leave it at that.
That's such an icky conversation to have.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Patrice Kahn-Kollers, she's a co-founder of Black Lives Matter, notes that people don't understand that social activism or social activist organizing isn't going online and cussing people out or going to a protest and calling something out. Activism is hard work, entailing sometimes boring meetings, strategy sessions, building a campaign, and getting petitions signed. That's absolutely it. That's grassroots government. That's activating people in numbers, in mass, to move toward a bigger social change.
That's what democracy is supposed to do.
Yeah, and look how successful the Black Lives Matter movement has been. Solely on the basis of them being so targeted by the right. Yeah. You're like, oh, you guys are doing it.
Yeah.
But, or you girls, rather, you ladies, because I think it's 3 women actually who started it. Amazing. Anyway, cancel culture is a slippery slope. Sorry. Something's in there, you guys. Something's in there.
It's me. I've done it.
I know.
I swear these are allergies.
They are allergies. My kid woke up having a sneezing fit 2 nights ago at 2 a.m, and I had to give him medicine. It was terrible. Terrible.
Babe.
Cancel culture is a slippery slope and leads to intolerance in democratic societies as people systematically exclude anyone who disagrees with their views. So, those are some of the opposing arguments to cancel culture. And, Carolyn, I think it's important, because this is what we do on the show, to talk about the mental health effects of cancel culture.
Yeah. Well, I looked at a couple different articles, but I really like this 2022 blog from a place called Carlo University. Mm-hmm. And it's all the points that I definitely observe in my own mental health when I am when I have participated in this, which I have, and also what I listen to. So certainly groups of people calling out perceived offenses and injustices, that's nothing new.
Yeah.
But social media is particularly damaging, Jen, because of its broad reach and ability to diminish the human emotion of the one being canceled. Mm. It also leaves a digital trail of what could have been, like you said, a momentary slip up, a mistake, an ignorance that very, not always, right? But leaving that person or organization, I think that's another thing too, very susceptible to future insults. And this danger of cancel culture comes from it also being anonymous. Like you said, before you had to show your face, you had to actually be present. You had there was something different about showing up. Yep. It's very easy to sit behind your keyboard and type and sound smart or sound whatever. And so, it's this digital trail is also very scary to me. But back onto this pack mentality, and it's extremely polarizing. And this is what we call mob justice. Yeah. People feel ostracized, people feel isolated, and our society does not need more of that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. And it has a profound impact on mental health. Canceling absolutely becomes bullying, which we know increases feelings of loneliness, anxiety, depression in the person being canceled. And at worst, death or suicide. Mm. So public shaming can absolutely have a detrimental effect on, actually, I think all the parties involved. Yeah. Not beyond just the person being canceled, the canceller and the bystanders have to feel this too. Mm-hmm. And when here's my platform. When it's happening to someone like Bill Cosby.
Yes.
I'm not talking about that. No. I think we also have to sort of at this point kind of separate. We all have different moralities, but I think there's sort of a social contract that I hope we all can agree with. If you don't, we're probably, I don't know.
Don't drug and rape people. Pretty basic.
Yeah. Don't murder people. Don't molest children. Right. So if that's where I kind of draw the line. I think if it is something that hurts kids, animals, any human rights, for me, that's a no.
Yeah.
I think we also look at something where it was from a different time. Yeah. You look at like a movie like, what's the Scarlett O'Hara one?
Oh, Gone with the Wind.
Yeah. Different time.
Right.
They should have known better. that to me, I don't want to cancel that film necessarily, but I understand that is hurtful to a group of people, and therefore there has to be something discussed about that.
Yes.
But if it's a conflict with a kid, or someone saying something, I'm going to say dumb things, or ignorant things, we have to learn from our mistakes, and people make mistakes.
Yeah.
I make mistakes. Yeah. You make mistakes.
Totally.
If you're a human, you are infallible, in my opinion. If you don't think so, something's a little...
You're fallible. Yeah.
Something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't help the emotional regulation or the ability of someone to learn from their behavior if you just shame them.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're talking about, this self-critical emotion in which a person displays a negative view from other people onto themselves. Shame is kind of all I deal with in psychotherapy. The basis of most people's behaviors or hardships they're dealing with usually is how they're feeling impacted by the world around them, and the shame, or people who have they've tried to trust. And so this intense feeling can grip your self-image and lower your self-esteem. So canceling someone for saying something stupid and subsequently feeling remorseful is way different than canceling someone, to me, like we said, like Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
So for folks who commit a far less egregious public offense, Jen, what are the alternatives? What do you do then?
I found a couple of good alternatives, and I'm glad you touched briefly on young people, because even though the definition that I read at the beginning of the episode focuses on celebrities, and I think that's how it started, now cancel culture is something that I think it's always been a part of our society, but now it's more pervasive because of social media, especially with young people. And
as is public shaming.
Right, right. We know from all the studies that have come out that social media in general is not good for young people. But when you take it to this level and you start to integrate cancel culture amongst a group of young people who are probably already feeling, could be feeling isolated and, like they don't measure up and like they can't do anything right, this could be downright toxic.
And usually have impulse control problems and think dumb shit's funny.
Yeah.
The same way you and I did. And again, there are certain things I think that just categorically are not funny.
Yeah.
And that needs to be made clear by parents or by organizations or schools or whatnot. But when someone makes a mistake, help them grow from that.
Yeah, totally. So this is from a well-known parenting expert and doctor. His name is Dr. Tim Jordan, who focuses on girls primarily. And I think this is an important perspective because, let's face it, us girls can be really mean. And Carolyn gave us a pretty good example of that.
I'm not going to lie. I was a mean girl. Hands down.
Yeah. And I was bullied. I alternated between being a mean girl and being bullied. Yeah. So depending on where I was and what group I was with. So, us girls, we can be mean, and we wield sometimes effective weapons like cancel culture in a way that alienates peers. And, this doctor, Dr. Jordan, says, I also encourage girls to adopt an I'm an ass, you're an ass mentality. Basically what you said, I make mistakes, you make mistakes.
Yeah.
If someone acts in a way that you disapprove of, remind yourself that you're not perfect. You make mistakes, and the same goes for others. For repeat offenders, girls can learn to lower their expectations for that person so that they are less affected by them and less disappointed when relationship mistakes are made. I think that's really poignant.
I would add to that, if this person's consistently doing that,
totally
get away from them.
Well, if it's a pattern and a practice, right, that's one thing.
Yeah.
So this is from LinkedIn. While cancel culture is necessary, it should be the last option and reserved for extreme cases like the ones we described, where people are so powerful that other reasonable means of getting their attention are ineffective. Being biracial, moving around a lot growing up, and having the opportunity to travel to various countries, I have observed similar patterns in our behavior between people from around the world, which makes cancel culture sometimes ineffective. Interesting observation from the person who wrote this article. They say, 1, we usually have good intentions or believe we have justified reason for this action. 2, we want to appear, feel, and be helpful to others. And 3, we often want the same things, but don't know how to communicate with each other.
This reminds me of, even back in Facebook, when atrocities would happen and people would put the flag of the nation.
Yes.
Like, I stand with.
Yeah.
I remember, I think, was it Paris, the first one that we did that with? And then you'd get people being like, oh, you stand with Paris, but did you know this? And did you know this? And it's like, okay, that reminds me of that. It's like, hey, I'm just trying to do something good. And I'm just trying to show that I support something. Yeah. And now,
Yeah. Yeah. And also, too, I think that there are other things you can do, things that make an impact rather than like, oh, I'm going to, I don't know.
Well, it's the equivalent of thoughts and prayers.
Right. It's very much thoughts and prayers, right? You know? And if you're genuinely interested in doing some activism around an issue, there are plenty of ways that you can do it.
Yes.
So there's something called call-in culture. Mm. And call-in culture needs to become more widespread. This is what the person from the LinkedIn article is saying. When we converse with our peers, coworkers, classmates, friends, family, or random people we follow on social media. So here is how we can start calling people in. Assume good intentions, even when you disagree.
100%.
At their core, I firmly believe that all people want the same thing. We want safety, security, food. We want to keep our family safe. We want to be healthy. We want access to the resources that we need to not only survive, but thrive. So that's one. 2, seek to understand and be understood. Speak to inform, not convert. So, assuming good intentions, even when you disagree, attacking intention is tricky because even if you are in the right, you don't know exactly what the other person's motivations were when committing an act or saying something, which means you can only be right if they admit what their intention was. So to call people in means talking to them directly and personally when you can.
But I don't like confrontation.
Well, that's another thing. People hide behind keyboards because they don't want to have a dialogue that is uncomfortable. But through discomfort comes growth. Yeah. It's often the only way you can grow is by making mistakes and living in that discomfort and hopefully being surrounded by people who are going to work with you to, 1, understand your intention and 2, help you to become a better person.
Yes. Well, it's interesting, Jen. One of the tenets of couples therapy and Gottman work, but this happens in other forms too, is, people love to talk about the injustice. Mm-hmm. And we have to, again, that cathartic, well, you have to know how you wronged me. You have to know how you hurt me. And also it's like, well, okay, but are we really, when someone makes a mistake, are we really teaching them how to ask for forgiveness, not apologize? Yep. Do not apologize to me when you have to not admit, even that sounds so shameful, but I want you to really own and take responsibility for unintended, the impact of maybe your intention. Right. And then how are we teaching people to repair? Mm-hmm. Most of the couples I work with are not, and most humans, we have not been, I wasn't taught how to repair. No. My family, we'd have a conflict and then no one would ever talk about it again. Yeah. And it'd be this like weird thing and then we'd all forget about it. But no one actually ever said, hey, I'm really sorry for doing that. How can we make this different next time? What if when someone did something that is worthy of canceling, again, in this context, making a mistake, saying something really stupid, sending out videos, sending out photos, writing something that's going to leave a trail, saying, all right, well, you hurt people. Yeah. Now it's on you to build their, your not your reputation, but it's your responsibility now to make it right. And that's going to take time. Yeah. It's not going to happen overnight. No. And that's very uncomfortable for people. Right. And I don't know that most people know, and I could speak for myself with this, I would not have normally described myself as a very forgiving person. Mm-hmm. I've cut many people out. Yeah. And some of those people, it was for safety. I know you and I have both done this. Yeah. And I'm okay with that.
That's understandable.
I'm okay canceling that person because there's a very personal reason. Right. I'm not broadcasting it. Right. Right. And I'm not trying to damn them. I'm trying to move away and go, we're going to be separate now.
You're protecting yourself.
And I think what we're talking about is people collectively coming together and saying, well, this person did something bad. Yeah. They're done now. Yeah. They don't get to redeem themselves. They don't get to repair the relationship. Mm-hmm. And in that, we both lose. Because now I've made myself seem better, which isn't true. Yeah. And I've done that by making you feel less. So it's that latter feeling of like, the calling in culture reminds me of like the leaning in. What was that book author?
Oh, Sheryl. Is it Sheryl Sandberg?
I think so.
Yeah. But some of that stuff is problematic as well, but I get what you're saying.
The concept of let's stop saying fucked up shit to each other
Yeah.
and listen and say, hey, what do you you're a person, you're struggling. How can we all help each other through this?
Yep, absolutely. And Carolyn, I think I get a sense of what you think about cancel culture, but tell me, are you a fan? What do you think?
I'm not a fan. And I think at this age, and here's why. I had a very bad problem with gossiping.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying really actively to check myself when I do that now. And it's part of the codependency of it makes me feel better to make someone else feel not as good. That's fucked up. And so anytime, I can limit my gossip and go, well, okay, what is it? The Edgar Allan Poe quote of believe only half of what you see and none of what you hear.
Mm-hmm.
That you really have to go, well, now what's my experience? And no, I'm not a fan of it. If you do get canceled for really doing something wrong, own it.
Yep.
Ask for forgiveness, apologize, take the time to offer a genuine, well-thought apology.
Mm-hmm.
I also think don't post shit online when you're feeling over emotional.
Yes, I agree.
Again, if you look back in my MySpace or my Facebook, I'm sad. Everyone's being really unfair this week because I wanted the person who was doing that to read that.
Of course,
it was
it's
a way of
passive-aggressive
social warfare.
Yeah.
So if someone does say something that you do find offensive, take some breaths, try and get in your body, try and figure out what about the comment is offensive. Is there an opportunity for repair? I do think, though, also considering everyone has a perspective. Everyone has a bias. Everyone has an assumption.
Yep.
And we have freedom of speech.
Yeah.
You could say shit. And how much of myself am I going to put into getting upset and getting activated?
Mm-hmm.
Again, if that's where you're at, go for it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stop you. But if you ask my opinion, I'm going to say, whoa. Hold on a second. Let's not just rush to make a judgment.
Take a breath.
And
also tap into a time, because we're all human. Like Dr. Jordan said, I'm an ass, you're an ass. Like, really, you're so perfect that you've never said or done anything that could be construed offensive by a particular group or groups of people. Like, I highly doubt you're that perfect. Like, maybe you don't use the N-word, right?
Yeah,
if somebody uses that, we're going to have to address it because that shit is not cool.
Well,
but, you know, nobody is perfect, and there's always opportunity to learn. Granted, there are going to be times where somebody is unwilling or incapable of learning, and they're like, I am a racist and I'm proud of it. And you're like, all right, cool. I'm not fucking around anymore. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I found a couple articles, I didn't talk about them, but how cancel culture is actually really encapsulated in woke and white privilege as well.
That makes sense.
Because it's a way to elevate yourself to feel better.
Yeah.
And if you don't feel good about yourself, what's better than pointing out the
I'm a good white person.
Yeah.
Look at me.
Look at all the books I have by Joy DeGruy and all these, white privilege and stuff. It's like, okay, but if you're not embodying that and being authentic, you do better.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to cancel you for that.
Right.
That's part of your journey.
That's part of your learning.
White privilege is learning.
Yeah.
But God damn it, everyone else has to hold their breath while you figure it out. It's very difficult I can't speak to that, but it's very difficult. So anyway, I also think, Jen, talk to someone about your feelings.
Yeah. Find something or somebody other than Facebook or Instagram or social media or making TikToks.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if that's something that's therapeutic for you, go for it.
In moderation. Everything in moderation.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing, if you eat tons of broccoli, that's not healthy for you either.
Sure.
You gotta pace yourself.
Yeah.
But I also think if you've experienced cancel culture firsthand, witnessed it, or it's been perpetrated to you, reach out to someone that you trust and talk about it.
Yeah.
And also, obviously, I would always say talk to a professional if you feel like you need it. But
I agree.
I don't think it's good. And I really worry about what it's doing with kids.
Yeah. I agree. So, our final thought on this is cancel culture necessary when it comes to powerful people with a platform doing very bad things? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. However, I think call-in culture can be a more powerful tool. For the last 7-ish years, I've been a racial equity trainer. It's work that I'm very committed to. I've gone through a lot of learning and growth, and I've watched other people go through learning and growth after this experience, or during this experience, and subsequently after this experience, and make mistakes along the way. Makes sense. I still make mistakes. But one of the goals of this training and this work is when we get groups together for the training, it's to inform and also to create a space where people can speak candidly without fear of retribution. In my previous job, this is a good example of it. A young man, he stood up and point blank said, I don't understand why I can't say the N-word with an A ending, not an ER ending, because he grew up in a primarily Black neighborhood. He couldn't quite understand why this wasn't okay. And he's like 20. So, while some people listening were quick to dismiss, I thought, what a perfect opportunity to have a dialogue. And it was interesting. I was very quickly doing calculations in my head. And the people of color seemed more inclined to bring him in than the white folks. Because I think, again, something to prove, right? Oh, I can't fuck with this kid. It's like, this is a child. And this is an opportunity to teach him why this isn't appropriate and why this could come off as hurtful. Don't exclude. Call in. Right? That's what this work, I think, is all about. So, I think if we're quick to cancel, we really miss the opportunity to learn from one another, which I feel is one of the most rewarding things about the human experience.
I know. Listening to people's narratives and where that thought and feeling originates. There's always a story behind it. And it's unique, and it gives me chills. I'm so happy that that's something you and I both love to be
immersed in.
Witness
to. No, I agree. And I just want to advocate for call-in culture, especially with our peers and our friends. And, cancel culture is absolutely fine if you're dealing with somebody who's done something absolutely and totally egregious and unforgivable. But a slip up here, a slip up there, while it might be hurtful, it might be offensive, we can still say, I am hurt. I am offended by what you said. Why did you say that? Can we learn from this? Can we repair our relationship? Can we learn to trust again? I firmly believe in most cases, people deserve second chances.
I do too.
Yeah.
And I think that it kind of starts in your friendships and your very interpersonal relationships. And I think, not to go off on a tangent, but that's why there's a safety in doing that online.
Yeah.
Well, I can't do that in my personal life.
Yeah.
So let me do it somewhere else where I feel like I have power.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Start in your home first.
It all starts with you, bro.
Yeah.
It all starts with us.
Yeah.
So we hope you enjoyed this. We obviously didn't have the opportunity with our time constraints to delve too deeply into this, but do your own research, come to your own conclusions. And the next time, regardless of whether it's online or in person, you feel like snap judging someone and excluding them on the basis of something they've said, think about yourself. Think about times that you've been in this situation, and think about whether or not people have given you second chances.
My 6th grade teacher used to say, before you point your finger at someone, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Own your own shit, everybody.
Yeah.
And on that note, have a great week. We'll see you all next week.
I'm an ass, you're an ass.
I'm an ass, you're an ass.